In the New Testament, Jesus is referred to as the King of the Judeans, both at the beginning of his life and at the end. In the Koine Greek of the New Testament, e.g., in John chapter 19 verse 3, this is written Basileus dan Ioudaion. Both uses of the title lead to dramatic results in the New Testament accounts. In the account of the Nativity of Jesus in the Gospel of Matthew, the wise men who come from the east call Jesus the King of the Judeans, causing King Herod to order the massacre of the innocents. Towards the end of the accounts of all four canonical Gospels, in the narrative of the Passion of Jesus, the use of the King of the Judeans title leads to charges against Jesus that result in his crucifixion. The initialism INRI represents the Latin inscription which in English reads as Jesus the Nazarene, King of the Jews, and John chapter 19 verse 20 states that this was written in three languages, Hebrew, Latin, and Greek, during the crucifixion of Jesus. The Greek version of the acronym read iota nu beta iota, representing eta sigma omicron sigma nu alpha zeta omega rho alpha omicron sigma b alpha sigma iota lambda epsilon sigma tau nu omicron epsilon delta alpha iota omega nu, which is best translated, Jesus the Nazarene, King of the Judeans. In the New Testament, the King of the Jews title is used only by the Gentiles, namely by the Magi, Pontius Pilate, and the Roman soldiers. In contrast, the Jewish leaders use the designation King of Israel. The phrase has also been translated King of the Judeans. Use in the Nativity. In the account of the Nativity of Jesus in the Gospel of Matthew, the biblical Magi go to see King Herod the Great in Jerusalem, and in Matthew chapter 2 verse 2, ask him, "Where is he that is born King of the Judeans?" The question troubles Herod, who considers the title his own, and in Matthew chapter 2 verse 7 to 8 he attempts to trick the Magi to reveal the exact location of the newborn King of the Jews. However, once the Magi depart without informing Herod of the location of Jesus, Herod orders the execution of all young male children in the village of Bethlehem, in the episode known as the Massacre of the Innocents, to avoid the loss of his throne to the newborn King of the Jews, whose birth had been announced to him by the Magi. Use in the Passion. In the accounts of the Passion of Jesus, the title King of the Judeans is used on three separate occasions. In the first such episode, all four Gospels state that the title was used for Jesus when he was interviewed by Pilate, and that his crucifixion was based on that charge, as in Matthew chapter 27 verse 11, Mark chapter 15 verse 2, Luke chapter 23 verse 3, and John chapter 18 verse 33. The use of the terms king and kingdom, and the role of the Jews in using the term king to accuse Jesus is central in the discussion between Jesus and Pilate. In John chapter 18 verse 34, Jesus hints that the king accusation did not originate with Pilate but with others, and in John chapter 18 verse 36 he states, "My kingdom is not of this world." However, Jesus does not directly deny being the King of the Jews. In the New Testament, Pilate writes, Jesus the Nazarene, King of the Judeans, as a sign to be affixed to the cross of Jesus. John chapter 19 verse 21 states that the Jews told Pilate, "Do not write King of the Jews, but instead write that Jesus had merely claimed that title," but Pilate wrote it anyway. Pilate's response to the protest is recorded by John, "What I have written, I have written." After the trial by Pilate and after the flagellation of Christ episode, the soldiers mock Jesus as the King of Jews by parting a purple robe on him, place a crown of thorns on his head, and beat and mistreat him in Matthew chapter 27 verses 29 to 30, Mark chapter 15 verses 17 to 19, and John chapter 19 verses 2 to 3. The continued reliance on the use of the term king by the Judeans to press charges against Jesus is a key element of the final decision to crucify. him. In John chapter 19 verse 12, Pilate seeks to release Jesus, but the Jews object, saying, "If thou release this man, thou art not Caesar's friend. Every one that maketh himself a king speaketh against Caesar," bringing the power of Caesar to the forefront of the discussion. In John chapter 19 verse 12, the Jews then cry out, "Crucify him." We have no king but Caesar. The use of the term "King of the Judeans" by the early church after the death of Jesus was thus not without risk, for this term could have opened them to prosecution as followers of Jesus, who was accused of possible rebellion against Rome. The final use of the title only appears in Luke chapter 23 verses 36 to 37. Here, after Jesus has carried the cross to Calvary and has been nailed to the cross, the soldiers look up on him on the cross, mock him, offer him vinegar and say, "If thou art the King of the Jews, save thyself." Quote, in the parallel account in Matthew chapter 27 verse 42, the Jewish priests mock Jesus as King of Israel, saying, "He is the King of Israel. Let him now come down from the cross, and we will believe on him." King of the Jews versus King of Israel. In the New Testament, the King of the Jews title is used only by the Gentiles, namely by the Magi, Pontius Pilate, Roman soldiers. In contrast, the Jewish leaders prefer the designation King of Israel, as in Matthew chapter 27 verse 42, Mark chapter 15 verse 32. But from Pilate's perspective, it is the term king which is sensitive, for it implies possible rebellion against the Roman Empire. In the Gospel of Mark, the distinction between King of the Jews and King of Israel is made consciously, setting apart the two uses of the term by the Jews and the Gentiles. The ISNI and Iota Nu Beta Iota acronyms. The acronym ISNI represents the Latin inscription IESVSNAZARENVS in English reads as Jesus the Nazarene, King of the Jews. John chapter 19 verse 20 states that this was written in three languages, Hebrew, Latin and Greek, and was put on the cross of Jesus. The Greek version reads Iota Nu Beta Iota. Devotional enthusiasm greeted the discovery by Cardinal Pedro González de Mendoza in 1492 of what was acclaimed as the actual tablet, said to have been brought to Rome by St. Helena, mother of Emperor Constantine. Western Christianity. In Western Christianity, most crucifixes and many depictions of the crucifixion of Jesus include a plaque of parchment placed above his head, called a titulus, or title, bearing only the Latin letters INI, occasionally carved directly into the cross and usually just above the head of Jesus. In the Eastern Church, King of Glory may be used. Eastern Christianity. In Eastern Christianity, both the Eastern Orthodox Church and the Eastern Catholic particular churches SUIURIS use the Greek letters Iota Nu Beta Iota, based on the Greek version of the inscription Eta Sigma Omicron Sigma Nu Alpha Zeta Omega Rho Alpha Omicron Sigma Beta Alpha Sigma Iota Lambda Epsilon Sigma Tau Nu Omicron Upsilon Delta Alpha Iota Omega Nu. Some representations change the title to Iota Nu Beta Kappa B Alpha Sigma Iota Lambda Epsilon Sigma Tau Omicron Kappa Omicron Sigma Mu Omicron Upsilon, or to be Alpha Sigma Iota Lambda Epsilon Sigma Tau Sigma Delta Omicron Chi Eta Sigma, not implying that this was really what was written but reflecting the tradition that icons depict the spiritual reality rather than the physical reality. Some other Eastern Orthodox churches use the Latin version INI, which is the same to the abbreviation of the Romanian equivalent. The Russian Orthodox Church uses of the abbreviation versions in the Gospels gallery. Biblical scenes. INI examples.